1,200 kilometers off the coast of Mexico lies a lost and little-known island, Clipperton, a tiny atoll whipped by winds and battered by Pacific breakers. Explorer Jean-Louis Etienne set sail to discover this unique ecosystem. He and his family, along with an international team of scientists, will live on the island for 4 months. Within a few days, a small village springs up on the ring of coral. The 40 scientists get down to exploring the unique biodiversity of this special island, the island at the end of the world. The Clipperton Atoll is so unusual and distinctive, it attracts bacteriologists from all over the world. Tropical cyclones, which shift tons of dead coral, closed up the atoll's ring just over a century ago. There are only 10 closed atolls on the planet, and Clipperton is the only one in the eastern Pacific. The greenish-colored soup in its center is, for the moment, an unknown quantity. What is particularly intriguing is the central hole. It is said to be bottomless. Although various expeditions have come here over the course of the 20th century, none of them had equipment advanced enough to unlock the secrets of the lagoon. This expedition, led by Jean-Louis Etienne, may finally be able to crack the puzzle. Within this self-contained ecosystem, there are 3 very distinct layers of water. One of them is completely lacking in oxygen. Researcher Philippe Le Baron, backed up by Hilla Elephants and 3 other bacteriologists, proceed in stages. To begin with, they study the first of the 3 layers of this very unusual basin, the topmost film of water, populated by bacteria which are extremely resistant to the sun's rays. Philippe uses a sieve 1/5 of a millimeter deep to sample the contents.
We are interested in these bacteria because we still don't know how they protect themselves against ultraviolet rays. Understanding these mechanisms could make it possible to produce new molecules. Molecules which could lead to the development of new sunscreens or products that slow down the aging of the skin.
The filtering operations have to be carried out in calm conditions so that the bacteria do not get mixed up with those living in the next layer down. These have different properties and would falsify the results.
We should be aware when drinking tap water and seawater that we are actually swallowing about 1 million bacteria in each cubic centimeter we drink. However, these are not bacteria that could make us ill. On the contrary, they are extremely useful since they help purify and clean the whole organism.
At the camp, another team takes over. Biochemists Loic Charpie and Martine Rodier have to collect the plant and animal plankton that lives in this first layer of water. They will comb the surface using a net with a wider mesh. Even though the lagoon is closed and has no contact with the ocean, even though its waters cannot be renewed, it is far from dead. A colony of tens of thousands of birds, masked boobies, coots, herons, along with hundreds of thousands of crabs, enrich the life of its waters. Sometimes a small bird accidentally falls into the lagoon. Its down soaks up water like a sponge. Weighted down, it cannot escape and drowns. The body is soon attacked by a myriad of crustaceans which strip the carcass in a matter of days. These tiny shrimps make a dip in the lagoon pretty uncomfortable for members of the expedition. Chemist Alain Coutet of the Museum of Natural Science in Paris drags the stagnant waters around the atoll looking for particular microorganisms, dinoflagellates, which produce oxygen. Jean Prat, in charge of logistics, Jean-Claude Brive, head diver, and underwater cameraman Didier Noirot set off to explore these mysterious waters. In places, the bottom is completely covered in algae. The water of the lagoon is very slightly salty. Some seawater probably seeps through the coral, allowing a few marine species to survive. Back in the village, the scientists suggest that Gérard Guérin, the team's handyman, dig a hole and look for a water table. The coral acts as an excellent filter and could hold a precious supply of fresh water. On Clipperton, everyone shares the chores. Mealtimes are precious. They're the only moments the researchers can relax, since they have to make the most of their short stay on Clipperton. Today, Philippe and Hilla won't be able to eat with the others. They have to filter their samples quickly to preserve the bacteria taken from the first layer of water. These have to be placed in sterile conditions so they can multiply in colonies for long-term studies.
We owe a big thank you to bacteria because they are the origin of life on Earth. They are the first living organism that colonized the planet. The general public is badly misinformed about microorganisms or their meaning. When we talk about bacteria, we often mean pathogenic microorganisms, the ones responsible for illness. In fact, there's a great diversity of bacteria. It's a fascinating subject because we hardly know 10% of all the bacteria that exist in the world. We continue our inventory of all these different microorganisms on a daily basis, and almost every day we discover previously unknown types of organisms that will certainly be useful to man. For instance, in producing molecules for new medicines, molecules for food production, molecules capable of breaking down the rubbish we produce, the possibilities are endless.
Gérard has not been idle. After only a few hours, he's discovered Clipperton's buried treasure, only 60 centimeters below the ground, a water table fed by seawater and rain. Filtered over thousands of years, it's sweet and fresh. All it takes now is a well, a hose and a pump, and Gérard has made the Clippertonian's day. This drinking water could also save the lives of castaways on deserted atolls. Biochemists Loic and Martine now set to work on the second layer of water in the lagoon, just beneath the surface. Using a GPS, they methodically divide the atoll into squares. Their aim is to evaluate the productivity of the lagoon.
We're interested above all in the phytoplankton. Phytoplankton is essentially composed of algae and bacteria which photosynthesize like algae do. This phytoplankton is actually in suspension in the water. They're organisms consisting of only one cell, and they reproduce about once a day. So this gives us a good idea of the fertility of this lagoon. It's almost the same as for the farmer who can measure the fertility of his field, except that the farmer counts his in tons of wheat per year, and we count in days because these organisms reproduce very, very quickly. Perhaps one day we could start aquaculture in this lagoon. Since this part of the ocean is French territory, it would be possible for us to set up a base one day, where we could grow algae quite successfully.
The remarkable productivity of algae, the fact that they adapt to all kinds of environments, and their high nutritional value make them a precious aid in fighting hunger in the world. Spirulina is an example of an algae that has already been successfully tested.
Spirulina is the traditional food of certain populations. For example, those living on Lake Chad or in parts of Mexico. It was something the Aztecs already knew about. Nowadays, it's used as a food supplement, precisely because it contains large quantities of vital elements like provitamins. It also contains pigments which help fight infections. Perhaps spirulina is the real treasure of Clipperton.
In the laboratory, the two researchers hope to determine the composition of the second layer of water. Armed with liquid nitrogen, chemical dyes, and blowtorches, they set out on the trail of the nutritive elements of the lagoon: ammonium, nitrate, phosphate. However, it would appear that the Clipperton atoll has another secret to reveal.
À Clipperton, j'essaye de comprendre pourquoi le lagon, enfin comment fonctionne le lagon.
I'm trying to understand how the lagoon works while here at Clipperton. However, I'm also taking samples that have nothing to do with the workings of phytoplankton. I'm measuring the metals in the lagoon because it seems that traces of silver and gold have been detected here. We're going to try and confirm or refute these findings.
Jean-Louis Etienne, intrigued by this story, joins the researchers.
Actually, the story about there being gold and silver here is not very old. Dates back to 1984, about 20 years ago. It was an American laboratory that officially established that there might be this wealth of gold and silver. With a discovery like that, after all, gold is precious. Who knows? We could be sitting on some important information.
But you know, there's not that much water in the lagoon. It would be difficult to extract very much gold.
That would suggest there's a seam below.
No, I don't think so.
Is it gold in solution?
It's gold in solution.
It could be a bit more concentrated because of the physical chemistry of the lagoon.
It's not a seam of gold and silver.
It seems unlikely that the substratum below could contain gold and silver. However, I'm no geologist.
It couldn't originate from there?
Maybe this is the treasure of Clipperton.
Kept in liquid nitrogen at minus 196 degrees centigrade, the algae samples will later be thawed in a laboratory and put in a culture. The days on Clipperton are long. In Loic Sharpie's nearby laboratory, algae specialist Alain Coutet is looking for chlorophyll in his samples of microscopic algae. In the fluorescent light, they show up red under the microscope.
Chlorophyll is a substance people know from buying chewing gum. It's an essential substance that keeps all these tiny organisms alive. Since they're able to capture carbon dioxide from the air, they're of interest to us because they help to purify the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is turned into a complex molecule by a chemical reaction. The reaction involves chlorophyll and sunlight, and it produces oxygen as a byproduct. Oxygen is almost like a waste product of this reaction. The greater part of the oxygen we breathe is made by these tiny organisms. So we have to protect our waters and not simply dump anything into them. Otherwise, we'll kill these tiny organisms that are essentially responsible for producing oxygen. That's really wonderful. It's like a firework display.
In camp, next to the canteen, Jean-Louis Etienne is holding a video conference with the scientists and audience assembled in the auditorium of the Natural History Museum in Paris. Together, they are discussing phytoplankton, filmed through a binocular lens and scanning electron microscope.
We're getting fantastic images with the electronic microscope. We can enter a different dimension and go deep into the cells. It's beautiful. It looks just like lace. It's difficult to imagine that there are thousands of things like that in the lagoon.
Questions from the audience follow. The Clipperton Lagoon intrigues everybody. Once, before the coral ring closed, it was full of seawater. Jean-Louis Etienne tells his audience about a passage which used to exist close to the rock.
Here's the rock. I'm indicating the rock with the arrow. Some seawater gets through from time to time when there's a heavy swell. You can see there's a break in the coral barrier just there, and we've discovered that if you study the edge on the lagoon side closely, you find that some seawater is seeping in and circulating, moving towards the inside of the lagoon.
The research continues. This expedition could be the last to the inside of Clipperton's closed lagoon. Buffeted by the ocean, the lagoon could reopen at any time, and the secrets it holds today would be lost forever. The seawater would come in and wash these unique bacteria from their coral bowl. It's time for Philippe and his team to study the lagoon in greater depth, to look at the third layer of water, the least disturbed by rain and storms, stagnant at the bottom since the coral ring closed. It's what makes Clipperton such an unusual location.
Clipperton's ecosystem is practically unique in the world. If it exerts a pull on scientists, it certainly isn't for its coconut trees. More than anything, it's the chance to study an extremely unusual ecosystem that, above all, could hold new scientific discoveries.
The sampling bottle descends into the green depths, passing through the first and second layers and continuing towards the bottom, some 35 meters down. It stops at a level deprived of oxygen. Such a thing is otherwise only found in the Black Sea at a depth of 120 meters. Here, it's only 14 meters below the surface. A lead weight controls the opening of the bottle. You can compare the content of the lake to an Irish coffee, with two liquids of different densities which sit one on top of the other without mixing. Philip hopes to find organisms with metabolisms close to those which existed at the beginning of life on Earth.
The first bacteria that existed on the surface of the Earth were thermophilic bacteria, capable of developing and functioning in very high temperatures and, above all, in the absence of oxygen. These bacteria progressively transformed the atmosphere, so that in the end, other organisms could survive in it.
d'autres organismes.
This oxygen, produced by thousands of photosynthesizing bacteria, created the conditions for life as we know it today. The hole, declared bottomless by a previous expedition, is the object of the next and final exploration of the lagoon. Jean-Claude Brive, head diver, and Didier Noirot go through the safety precautions.
This type of dive demands maximum safety measures.
I agree.
The first rule of safety is we stay very close together. If there's a problem, you grab the other's arm and go 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay?
Okay.
Diving into this hole, which could be the chimney of an old volcano, is like crossing into another world. The torches hardly pierce the murky water, and the divers soon lose their bearings. Which way is up? Which way is down? Is this shifting, spongy material a lining? Or perhaps they've already reached the bottom of the hole. The sounding line shows which way to go. The bottom is in sight. Strange, what happened to the legendary hidden depths? One of the divers plunges his arm into a thick bed of decomposing matter without meeting any resistance. Is this the mystery of the bottomless hole? He must be careful. The probing is disturbing the water. Ian Thomas, Didier's assistant, is caught off guard by a sudden change in the density of the water. He is unable to stop himself falling and lands headfirst in the sludge. He doesn't move for a long time. What's the matter with him? The team is worried. It's a false alarm. He's only trying to push through the layer of sludge in his way. However, all this movement has caused hydrogen sulfide to be released, which irritates the nostrils and burns the diver's eyes and skin. There's total confusion. Jean-Claude signals that there's a problem. They have to return to the surface immediately. The dive has become extremely dangerous. Any further exploration is compromised.
The first hole's for sissies. That one's another story. It smells really horrible. Leave something for your mates.
That's better.
This is going to make you look a bit like a pirate, but then that's no bad thing on Clipperton, is it? Hold the dressing with your hand while I fasten it. Now that you know it's dangerous, does that give it a special attraction? What are you going to look for in this bottomless hole?
Perhaps we're looking for something that doesn't exist in this bottomless hole, but we'd like to know. How can I put it? We'd like to move things along and supply information to the people who are interested in knowing what's going on down there. Where does the acidity come from? Where does this magma come from? Where does everything else come from? Is there seawater underneath? Is there more fresh water underneath? Is there any life down there?
Yes, maybe you'll find life down there. Life at those great depths. 50 meters down, you might find life that could be connected with
the ocean.
With the ocean, yes.
And maybe coral, who knows?
I see. Is that when it started to sting?
No, not yet.
That's because you stirred it up.
Yes, because you don't know where you're going.
You're diving in sludge.
Yes, but at the edge of the hole it's nothing but sludge.
It's like the end of the world.
The measurements made with a sounding line reveal that the depth of the bottomless hole is no more than 34 meters. So ends another legend. Neither gold nor silver can be found in the water alongside the plankton. The rumor was false. Yet the Clipperton Lagoon remains an amazing living laboratory which must be preserved. The bacteria it contains, ancient life forms which appeared in the early history of the Earth 3.5 million years ago, could advance research into the origins of life itself. Studying the samples will take months. However, the scientists have brought back a unique collection of new species of microorganisms, bringing hope for medical research and future food production. This pool of greenish water is unique in the whole world.